Hello and welcome to another episode of PPC Town Hall. My name is Fred Valles. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Optmyzr. And today we're going to have a very special session. We'll make it the best one yet. And we have some guests back who you've seen before. But the topic we've got lined up for today is about e-commerce and shopping ads and kind of thinking about all the things that happened in 2020, the new trends that we saw, a lot of e-commerce growth, a lot of growth during the holiday season, and sort of trying to figure out what are the takeaways from this, what can we expect to continue into 2021, what do we think is going to shift, and how do we build our campaigns for the next year around these new trends. So who better to join us for that session than two awesome speakers from Google. We got Peter and Emi who will be joining us. But of course, we also want to hear from another practitioner. So after Google tells us what we can do better, let's hear from someone who's done it, who's tried it, and what his experience has been. So we've got Andrew Lolk from Savvy Revenue who's going to share that with us today. So thanks for joining us on PPC Town Hall, and let's get rolling. All right, Emi and Peter, thank you for joining me. So, and thanks everyone who's watching us. One thing we like to do, by the way, is if you can say hello in the comments, tell us where you're joining us from. We'll also use the comments on the YouTube stream to take your questions. So this is live. Emi and Peter, where are you guys calling us from?
I am calling from Los Angeles, south side of LA. It's a beautiful day. It's a little chilly, but it's a really nice today.
Nice. Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah.
And so Emi is a partner, platform partner lead over at Google. And Emi and I work together quite a bit. And then we've got Peter. Peter, you're coming from the East Coast, right?
Yeah, tuning in today from Raleigh, North Carolina. Getting some quite gray weather here, but it's okay. We'll make it through it. It'll be summer again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm still here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we've got a plume of water coming in, a tropical, a pineapple express, I guess it's called. So for those of you not on the West Coast, that basically means that all the rain from Hawaii makes it over to us and we just get drenched with a foot of water, which we need because it's been dry here. So yeah, lots of people joining from all over the world. We got Italy, Germany. Okay, we got some people getting their popcorn and notebooks ready. We got Canada on the line. So thanks everyone for joining our session today. So as far as the flow, so quickly level set here, but Emi and Peter, we're going to talk a bit about the trends that we've seen from 2020 moving into 2021. Then we're going to talk to Peter about smart shopping campaigns versus regular shopping campaigns, kind of how you would choose between those. That's when we'll bring in Andrew from Savvy Revenue, who's actually played with these campaigns, and we'll do a quick introduction of him at that point. But so Emi, with that, lots of people watching. So tell us what Google has seen shopping-wise in 2020 and what you think is going to happen in 2021.
Sure. If you could put my slide quickly. So shopping trends, I want to share something more consumer-focused trend. So as we all know, we've shifted very quickly since COVID happened. And digital is going to be, and is already a critical touch point for many shoppers, right? And search locally, and there's three things. So search locally and shopping also in-store availability. So I think when you think about myself too, and when you think about yourself, you look for items and looking for the inventory if there is going to be available nearby stores. So that's 60% increase. And then trying new and safer services. As we all know, we want to make sure that contacting the store and then going to the store and picking up items is safe for everyone. So 65% increase in a curbside searches is, I think for me, it was a shocking stats. So I just wanted to share these three main stats. There are some other stats available from Think with Google. So I'm going to share the link with everyone. It's public website. And then lastly, on the bottom, if you 600% increase for searches for click and collect. That tells you how many people are looking for services to pick up items from local places. So that's a really interesting insights I wanted to share.
And these are the types of trends that we think might also stick, right? So, and I was just watching another study basically saying that the older generation in large droves is also moving to doing shopping online. But what's interesting here is that shopping online no longer means like buy online and get it shipped to your house. It's sort of this hybrid model that's now coming in. That's really making it easy for people to bridge that gap and have a different comfort level.
Yeah. And then we're going to see some category trends as well. But I've seen an article saying that people are more comfortable purchasing big furniture. So furniture is another one, and home improvements, of course. So I'm going to show you the slide later. So related to this, I wanted to show you the store pickup with shopping. I'm sure some of you have seen this. So when you go search the item, you'll see the picture, and then under the picture, you see pick up today. There's also another new option called pick up later. So that's released in January. And there's also another release website that you can look at. So that's interesting insights too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what do retailers do to get this running, Peter? How do you get this pick up today, pick up tomorrow, pick up later running on your ads?
Yes, these are all extensions that you can add onto your shopping campaigns. I'm not up to date with the exact specifics on there, so I'm not sure if you'd have that handy, but we'll look it up.
Right.
And we have it handy. We can include in a playbook that comes after this webinar.
Awesome. Yeah, and we do have the slides. So if anyone's asking, we do have the slides that we can share with you later. We'll pop up the link at the bottom where you can put in your email, and then we'll send the slides, everything we presented today, as well as an additional playbook for shopping online. All right. Sorry to interrupt you, Emi.
No.
Yeah, people store.
I knew there was going to be a question for this one because it's a new. Great. So why, as a marketer, when I use Pickup Today, it's beneficial for all of us, for consumers and retailers and marketers. And then this is one stats I wanted to show you was a performance lift. So when you have Pickup Today extension, then CBR increases 13% and ad CTR increases 2%. So why not using to help everybody? And on top of that, you can deliver higher performance. So that's one message I wanted to share.
Nice. Okay, yeah, so obviously people, they shop online, but they want it right now. So if you have the capability of doing store pickup, why not do it, right? And I think the other interesting thing that we certainly saw in 2020 was that local guidelines are shifting all the time. So if you're not allowed to have people coming into your store, and I don't know what it's like in the places where people live right now. I was just doing a webinar with some folks in the UK. They're pretty much on a strict lockdown. Us in California, we just came out of it. So, but a lockdown in California, you can still go shopping. Strange sort of thing. Right, but it really depends from area to area. So the more that you can have these different options and be very nimble as far as putting them in play when it makes sense. Obviously, people still need stuff, so they're going to look to the ads. And this is awesome because, like Emi showed, the ads now actually show you that there is an option to just drive up to the storefront and have somebody put it in your trunk and take it home that way. But then I'm also curious, Emi, so I mean, you talked about like a lot of furniture purchases, right? And I think we also see a lot of people buying second monitors for their computer, webcams to work from home. Obviously, we're seeing huge spikes in these categories, but can we expect that sort of e-commerce to continue? Or do you basically have your new couch and now you're good for at least a decade?
Yeah, I think overall, all categories went up in terms of purchase online. But particularly what we've seen is, computers, all the electronics, right? And then clothes and furniture and home furnishing. And I think we all know everyone is working on a house, renovating a house. So that's a high demand. And then interestingly, I've seen healthcare and personal care increase surges. And so those are the key categories that went up, I think, highest. And when you look at on the right-hand side, I have a chart of search trends. So people are more comfortable purchasing non-brand items. They're more focused on inventory. Can I get it today? Can I get it tomorrow? So when you see brand versus generic, you see much higher demand for non-brand searches.
Right. And so sort of the interesting story that I take away from this is obviously there's been a huge boost in e-commerce across all categories that are operating, travel sort of being probably the exception here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get all these new consumers now looking for stuff online, but they're brand agnostic. They don't care about a specific brand. So basically all this new opportunity, it is up for grabs to a large degree because people don't look for that specific brand. So it just makes a huge case for get your shopping ads up because people are willing to be convinced by whatever it is, whether it's price or easy access, or like Emi was saying, like, is your supply chain working? Can you actually get us this thing that we need? And can you get it to us quickly? And brand matters far, far less. Now, I think brand overall is important, right? Like I focus on brand, Google focuses on brand, you probably all do, but this is sort of like an opportunity to start engaging with all the customers. And once you have that connection, then you can start building the brand with them, start doing email campaigns, build that long-term relationship, and eventually get cheaper clicks when that consumer does now go and search for your brand specifically in the future.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is a social e-commerce, I think a trend as well. I think I shared with you earlier, when you're watching, let's say YouTube, or when you're doing something else, there are a lot more advertising or useful information coming up. I ended up purchasing so many. So that's one experience myself. I can't remember how many things I purchased from YouTube.
You know, I actually deleted the Instagram app off of my phone because I was buying too many things from Instagram. I was like, I didn't know I needed that, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, and personal services too. I think we all know that. Consulting services to fitness services and yoga teachers to anyone who provides useful services. That's, I think I've seen a trend that.
Yeah. And I think the other opportunity that was interesting that you had pointed out was that there's been a huge increase in streaming behavior. So someone like Disney Plus, for example, they launched last year, but within that first year, they saw the subscription levels they had expected to get after 5 years. So it was a huge acceleration, right?
Yeah.
Where else do people watch a lot of online content? Well, YouTube, obviously. And so YouTube actually has a lot of people watching, and the inventory is pretty cheap. And there's some new opportunities to put ads on there as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And then we're going to talk more success cases later. But yeah, I've seen a lot of uplift from YouTube actions too.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, so we're all here. We all believe in e-commerce and shopping ads. So Peter, let's talk a bit about smart campaigns, smart shopping campaigns versus regular shopping campaigns. And maybe if we can see slide 10, Emi, then we can talk about the differences between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter, why don't you explain a bit to folks how Google at least thinks about smart versus regular shopping?
Yeah, so there are a couple of key differences, right? I think a lot of people understand that the smart shopping is going to use automated bidding, but then a lot of the times the question that we'll get is, okay, so what's the difference between smart shopping and a traditional shopping campaign with smart bidding enabled on it? The key difference there is that smart shopping is going to dynamically allocate your budget using machine learning across different channels and formats. So whereas with traditional shopping, you may have a display campaign, a dynamic remarketing campaign, you may be wanting to surface products on YouTube and Gmail, all through separate campaigns and through separate strategies. Smart shopping is going to do that automatically for you. And the really nice thing is that it's still keeping your goal in mind. So it's only going to tap into those additional formats or surfaces when it thinks that tapping into those could bring you additional leads or sales.
Right. And I think that's an important distinction. We'll talk about that in a minute. But like, what is a lead and what is a sale, and how do you value new customers and how do you value lifetime? I mean, I think fundamentally that's really a mind shift. I think in PPC is we don't have to worry so much about like what's the CPC bid we want to set, but like how is it that we want to value when that customer comes to us? Like, is that going to be a lifetime value? Is it going to be high because that customer is going to come back to us? They're not going to return a lot of things. Is that a customer who tends to visit us by walking into the store? or only online? And what do we know about the difference in behavior between these two categories? And so these are the questions that we have to start asking ourselves much more. And how do we feed that data back into Google? And then I think regardless of whether you use smart shopping or regular shopping with smart bidding of some kind, the system is going to benefit from that because it actually knows what it is you're trying to achieve. And so we'll talk a bit more about that. And I'm kind of guessing that Andrew might have some thoughts on that. So Andrew, we're going to add you to the stream here. Andrew Lolk.
Hello.
How are you?
Happy to be here. So far, so good.
So far, so good. And I hear it's pretty cold where you are. Where are you calling us from today?
So we're calling in from right now. I'm sitting in northern Mexico, right across the border from San Diego, and nothing down here is built for 50, 60 degree weather. So it feels cold. I have a space heater here behind me.
Poor you. 50 degrees.
It's so bad. Like the people in Denmark, we have a company in Denmark as well, and they just they always whenever I say what the weather is, they're always like, yeah, we're at 30 right now. So it's the same every time.
Yeah. Well, that's why you moved, right? So you're originally from Denmark. That's the reference there. Also, the one of the co-founders at White Shark Media. So you've obviously been in the space quite a long time. Currently, tell us about Savvy and what you're kind of working on now.
So yeah, we do primarily paid search, where it's search, shopping, YouTube display for e-commerce. So we've had a very, very interesting year with COVID. We've been in one of the industries that's really been booming. So that's been interesting to follow how lockdowns have affected the different markets we operate in, because we have a team in Denmark and we have offices here in the States. Then we operate with e-commerce brands across the States, Europe, and primarily Scandinavia. So we start seeing these really interesting things. What happens when there's lockdowns in individual countries and how it affects it differently, and it really affects the same every single time. So it's been really interesting to compare across borders. So
what have you seen across borders or between the different types of campaigns that you can run for shopping?
So one of the things that the question we all ask is how long will the e-commerce boom last? And we all see different numbers, and there are some overall charts that say, okay, we went up to 19% and then down to 16% and all that. But overall, what we're seeing is that there's just a boom across the border, and it's more or less held in most industries.
And so that's leading to a behavior change, right? So people who may not have been doing e-commerce are now used to it. They've kind of explored it, so likely they're going to continue it because they've seen the convenience of it.
Yeah, so for instance, in Denmark, we had a lockdown in March of last year that lasted about 1 to 2 months. And we saw a huge boom in most e-commerce markets at that time. And we were all sitting just waiting for it to go away, because COVID was more or less non-existing in Denmark from May up until winter time. So we're all waiting for it. When is it gonna go down again? And in most markets, in most industries, it didn't, which was really interesting. And we've been correlating some things from different countries. It just looks like it's here to stay. People have now gotten used to buying online.
Okay, so how do we make the most of that opportunity? And you guys have tried smart shopping and regular shopping. How do you think about that?
So I'm known for being very skeptic. So one of the things that always surprises people a little bit is when I say I recommend smart shopping and smart bidding, for that matter, for all in-house teams and full service agencies. When we consult with in-house teams, especially smart bidding is the one we recommend. But smart shopping wins over regular manual bidding setups 9 out of 10 times. And that's coming from me. I run that. This is all we do. So it's
you're actually pretty good at PPC, right? So
yeah, this is all we do. So it's but it's just in-house teams and full service agencies. They don't get as deep as the rest of us do. Not tooting our own horn, but this is all we do. So we have some more complex setups we can use and have been running for a very long time that work really well. It's just the standard setup that you see in Google ad accounts these days, with one shopping campaign, maybe a little bit of smart bidding, or maybe a little bit of manual bidding that you update now and again. It just smart shopping beats that 9 out of 10 times.
Okay,
so it's our recommendation.
And I agree with that. I mean, I think for a lot of companies, they're kind of used to keyword advertising, and then they figure out, well, hey, shopping ads obviously are huge. If you're a retailer, they dominate those search results pages, so we need to do it. But you've never really focused on it. You've never really learned it. And then you set up that single campaign with a single target, and that's not going to work well, right? And so without divulging your secret sauce, but what's the key factor in terms of manual management and structure and how you think about bidding that does make it work better if you're actually super focused on it?
So the one thing that you need to use in order to get quote unquote manual working is the priority levels. So there is this ability within Google Shopping where you can have a high, medium, and low priority, and then you're basically telling Google which products and which campaigns to prioritize over the other, and you can play around with that in many different ways and forms. The easiest example to understand is having bestsellers in your high priority and having all your regular products in the secondary campaign. That means you're telling Google if you have 2 different cables and you have one bestseller and another that's regular, well, show my bestseller first because that's where we get the most conversions from. It's the one we get the highest conversion rates from. But you can use that for promotions, inventory levels, with weather, with if you're proactively using seasonal bidding based on, okay, now we're getting into clearance time in February, so you need to focus on your clearance products. You can use that across the board to proactively showcase, to focus on the products that sell the best.
Right. And so I guess what you're saying is that you have a huge inventory, so you just may have different margin on certain products, have certain products ready in the warehouse to ship. Other things might be drop shipped, so maybe you don't want to focus that much on those. So so basically help Google.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Sky's really the limit on that part.
Now, of course, so you have the high, medium, low priority campaigns. So do you typically use just 2 levels or will you use all 3 levels?
It depends on the complexity. Sometimes it can be a lot to try to bucket search terms or products into 3 different layers. And especially with in-house team that's just getting used to this kind of setup, you can just use 2 layers. So you have a high priority and a medium priority. Perfect. That's a good start.
Yeah, that makes sense. And here, Antonia is saying another piece of good advice, I think. So smart shopping, use it on good sellers and push manually. Actually, sorry, the point is confusing me a little bit, but I think what you're basically saying, so these things that you can actually focus on, then focus on it, regular shopping campaign, and split the levels high, medium, low. But then the smaller clients that you may be managing where you don't necessarily have the time to think about these things, smart shopping beats kind of like setting up a campaign and then not worrying about it.
Pretty much, yeah, and this like one of the example that Antonia is mentioning is really good for when it works. Let's say that your bestsellers has a lot of data, and we all know smart bidding, smart shopping works best with a lot of data. So putting those bestsellers with a lot of data in your smart shopping campaign, and it can like kind of squeeze the performance out of them, and then you kind of just manually gut feel run the rest of your products in a manual campaign. You can easily do that.
Makes sense. Hey, I want to add Peter back to the stream here because we're talking about some pretty good tactics, and I know Peter loves his tactics. Mm-hmm. Peter, any comments on what we've heard so far from Andrew?
No, I think it's totally in line with what we've seen and what we've done before. I mean, obviously Google talks a lot about smart shopping, and we push it pretty heavily, but that's because we do see good results. And even for myself, I started at one point just reading the case studies and reading the survey results. But at one point in time, even if I believe it, I've worked with a lot of different partners in the past that didn't necessarily just buy into the stats, right? So through a lot of like recurring tests with different partners, different budget levels, different user groups, my experience at least has been time and time again that we do see smart shopping outperform traditional shopping in all of the use cases that I've encountered so far, at least.
And you touched on some things Andrea was asking. So are there like certain budget levels for which it works better than others?
Yeah, so as far as I've experienced, we've tested smart shopping, at least within our organization, at some levels that are quite lower even than probably the recommended Google one overall. And what I'd say is I'd probably try to keep it. I probably want to make sure that the campaign is generating sales, right, to a certain extent. If it's not generating any sales at all, I might hold off on it, on testing it for.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's basically because Google makes a point. There should be a roughly 100 conversions per month on a smart shopping campaign, right? So it's maybe not so much about the budget, but how many quote unquote sales you drive.
Yeah, I'd say the sales and conversions matter a bit more. We have seen success, at least with testing that we've done within our team that I've done with different partners that I work with. We have seen some pretty strong success with much less than 100 conversions a month. But once you start getting into single digits, I might want to keep an eye on that and test it a bit carefully.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing in, Peter. I'm going to ask Andrew one more question, and then we'll bring you and Emi back in here. But Andrew, we had a great question from Cole. The smart shopping campaign outperform a more advanced query level filtering setup with priority settings. 9 out of 10, you said it does work for smart shopping.
Yeah,
so the query level filtering. So let's talk about it. And a lot of people may not know exactly what the query level filtering is.
So the query level filtering is using the priority levels that I mentioned before, but through some tactics which are hard to explain on a quick call. But basically, you're trying to categorize the different keywords into high, medium, and low priority campaigns based on how likely they are to convert. So, for instance, a branded term converts better than a generic term in most markets. So you'll put that, you'll assign those in one campaign and set a higher bid for it. That's basically what Cole is mentioning. And the question, will it outperform a more advanced query level setup? That's actually the best question I've gotten today. We had it in our team meeting last week as well in Savvy. And our verdict on that is evolving a little bit right now because we're getting less search data. So the less search data or search term data we have access to, the less powerful it is to use the query filter, because we can't see what is actually performing well and what is actually performing poorly. So we can't find the keywords or search terms that needs to be moved into the different categories or buckets, so to speak. So we have seen cases where we would have used the query filter in the past, but where we either go over to another priority split, or we, in some cases with very simple products, actually opt for the smart shopping, which seems to doing really well.
Yeah, and so my take on the query level filtering is that there's sort of two levels, right? The one you talked about was brand versus generic performs differently. And in that case, you don't really need to know what the search queries are. You can still say, okay, well, here's my generic campaign, so I know what the brands are, so I'm just going to make those negative keywords right from the get-go. And so you can still maintain that. You can still experiment it. And listen, does it work better or worse? I think you always have to test it. And it depends on a lot of other factors too, like how are you bidding for the different categories. But then,
one thing that is interesting with the query filter thing is that it is both smart bidding and smart shopping have access to the full library of search terms. So basically, if you want to run a query filter or a query split on your shopping campaigns, theoretically, it should be better to run it with smart bidding, because smart bidding has access to all of the search term data that we don't. So that's where our thinking on that evolves as the abilities and the in Google Ads also changes.
Peter, can you deny or confirm that might be the case? I don't think you can, right?
No, I'm learning a lot from this too. We work with a lot of SMBs, so I haven't gotten to the advanced query filtering yet.
Yeah. And then the other sort of query level filtering that is becoming more challenging for us, and we have capabilities to do all of these things in Optmyzr, so check it out if you haven't seen it. But basically, we can identify when a generic query, something like t-shirts, may match against different product groups. And we can see, okay, well, this product group sells an orange t-shirt, and this one a black t-shirt, and this one a white t-shirt. And for some reason, Google always wants to show the orange t-shirt. And I don't know why, because it doesn't convert as well. Like, how many times do you see someone wearing an orange t-shirt, right?
That's a good CTR.
Well, yeah. But now at least we know, because we look at the queries and we see, well, it doesn't convert as well, so we make it a negative. So it's query sculpting. So we force the query to go to the ad group where we think it's just a better match. And that could be because of conversion rate, could be because of profitability, could just be because we just have more black t-shirts in stock than orange ones, right? So we prefer selling that one. Anyway, all good advice and tons of good questions coming in. So I'm going to bring Emi into the call as well again. But let's look at some of these questions and how people want to optimize. So Garrett is asking, what about smart shopping versus actually having the 3 channels split out by campaign, right? Because like Peter was saying, a smart shopping campaign will show you right on YouTube, display, and search at the same time. Andrew makes the point that if you manage it really well, you can still do better. But does that also mean you have to have all 3 campaign types?
Yeah, so I think the core benefit that we're getting from smart shopping versus having the separate ones is that we're dynamically going to allocate the budget between them based on the results you're saying, right? So if you're having a standard shopping campaign and a dynamic display campaign, you're probably going to have to determine how much budget is going into each of those. So if in any case, let's say you allocated less budget to the dynamic display campaign, but the dynamic display campaign starts giving you more favorable results, starts giving you more conversion value at the cost that you're giving. If you have those in separate campaigns, we won't be able to then shift more money into that, shift more budget into that so that we can capture those additional sales. Smart shopping will take care of that. Okay, how much budget do I allocate to each of these? And simplify it to just, hey, I'm trying to get as much conversion value as possible within my goal. Serve my ads on whatever channel are going to best help me do that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question here. So Marco is asking about scaling smart shopping campaigns, and there seems to be this invisible wall that they keep hitting when they think there's more people searching, but it's just that volume is not coming there. Peter, I know you had a great visual, which is a bit of a flow chart. Emi, I don't know if you can show slide 24, which we got right there. So Peter, do you want to walk us through kind of like how you scale here?
Yeah, so I think the core levers that we have for scaling the smart shopping campaign in general, right? It's going to be the ROAS, the budget, and also how many products are in our feed. At its simple terms, like products in your feed are going to help because the more products we have to choose from, the more inventory we have to serve up from, right? That would be akin to in a search campaign to adding more keywords. If we add more products in there, we'll be able to get more reach. The ROAS target and budget, those are sort of serve as trade-offs. So if I am lowering my ROAS target, I'm essentially telling Google Ads and I'm telling the machine learning that I'm okay with slightly less efficient conversions if I'm able to capture more volume from it. So we can use that as a lever in order to achieve more reach in that case. And I sort of think this graphic a bit works through that, right? And I think if your budget is limited, that might be a case where we want to increase the ROAS because that could be an indication that, hey, we could be getting more revenue at an actual better ROAS if we were to increase the budget. Yeah.
And that slide, by the way, we'll put it in the deck that we'll share. So anyone who wants it will pop the URL to request it on the bottom of the screen here. There's a question about from Harry here. So smart shopping works great, but then all of a sudden it doesn't. What do you do? How do you fix it when so much of it is kind of like automated?
If they stop performing well, I think it depends on a bit sort of like the flow chart thing, right? First check, like, did we set the ROAS target correctly? Do we have the right products in there? Is the budget appropriate for what we're serving on? If all of those seem right, then it may be the case that we dig down into the feed, right? Our feed's set up really well. Is there some optimization we need to do in the titles, the descriptions? There's a lot of complexity that can happen there and a lot of different levers we can pull, but not sure if Andrew, you or Fred have encountered other
I guess the question is the performance dropping in terms of the conversions are drying up, or is it that the impressions and clicks are drying up? And so then could be that the price is the issue, right? So there's a competitor who came in who's underpricing you. That would cause your conversions to go away, while the search volume might still be there. And then obviously
I think one of the things, like, so we see this, we get a lot of calls on this particular scenario, and the most often thing is like Peter's slide might have looked a little bit complex for everybody who's looked at it, but it's really, that's all it takes. Like 1 month, for instance, you go from November to December, you're seeing great results, and then you move into January and ROAS starts sliding a little bit down. but you still have the same ROAS target as you had in December, which is a high one. But the campaign can't really generate the same volume as it did before, so it's still trying to chase that high ROAS that you had before, where the solution is really just adjusting your ROAS levels, or even changing to maximize conversion value within a budget that you have available, so that you use the options you have available now. Too many people just look at this smart shopping, smart bidding, etc., and look at it as it's a set and forget. And there's so many things you can go in and tweak when it comes to the bidding and the budget and all that, to force it to relearn some of these things and think of like when is seasonality changing and all these things, and then just changing the target ROAS is a really good solution to that before you start diving into the feed and all the other things.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always curious that when you talk about people who've been doing PPC for a long time, they never thought about CPC being a static value. Like we all went in like every day, changing every CPC bid we had. And then all of a sudden we got smart bidding and it's like, oh yeah, here's our target and we're done. Like, and we walk away. Right? That's fine at some level, because part of what the system is doing is it's figuring out what is the correct CPC. And that's part of the variance that we did based on changes in conversion rate. But what it's not doing is looking at what you were saying, Andrew, seasonality, like how have your margins changed? How has your supply chain changed? Right? Those are the things that still warrant you to take a look at the targets, the target ROAS and the target CPA. And again, I mean, I love having tools like Optmyzr then, so you can slightly tweak it and you can see if that tweak is working automatically and then reapply and keep going, chasing basically after the right targets that work for you. What question do you guys want to take next? There's lots of questions.
We have lots of questions.
Well, why don't we take Paul's question here? And this is another optimization tip before we go into Paul's question. But one way to get smart shopping and smart bidding to work better is to attach audiences to it, so that Google has a little bit more information about like, who is it? Did they come to my product page? Did they go through my shopping cart? They can use that, right? So then the question is it better to do this tagging through Google Ads or use analytics, or does it not matter?
I think both of them work pretty well. I think if you have an existing analytics setup, you may want to use a lot of the different goals you have there and import them into Google Ads as well. But both are very compatible, and I think you can go either way.
Yeah, same thing here. It's about the same.
Yeah, and Garrett, who's watching, is also confirming that it's both of them work. So we have this question here. So we kind of touched on this before, but Herbert's asking minimum number of products for a smart shopping campaign. I guess this talks about granularity, right? So, and I think we have a great slide. So Emi, it was slide number 14, if we can show that one. So slide number 14 is talking about splitting things out. Keep going. Yeah, that one right there.
Yeah.
So how do you split things out? When does it get too granular? And Peter, do you want to talk about what this slide is kind of talking about as far as a smart shopping campaign split out?
Yeah, so I think this is also referring to like testing different shopping campaigns, how far you can split it. Listen, wouldn't say there's like one specific magic number. I think in a lot of slides we've called out like 100 conversions per product group, but ultimately you want to make sure that you have enough volume to meet whatever goal you're tackling, right? The smart shopping ultimately, and smart bidding in general now, optimize at the entire account level, so it's learning from all the different things that you have going on in there. But the risk of segmenting it too much is that with each segment that you break out, you're introducing an additional constraint, right? So if we have if we're just looking at conversion value overall and the amount of conversion value we're able to generate in our account, it is likely that we'll be able to generate the most conversion value with one campaign with a single target versus 3 campaigns that are each introducing different targets, because with each campaign, we're introducing an additional constraint. So if we have only one product in a campaign and we have a ROAS target of 300%, that may never show, right? So I think we just have to balance that out, and testing is always a good way to do it because there's no secret sauce or magic recipe there.
Right, but I think what you also touched on then is that you really have to understand your goal, right? So if you're looking to maximize revenue, then put everything in a single campaign and just let Google figure it out. Obviously, that's now also premised on correctly reporting your values back into Google. But then on the flip side, if you have more of a profitability goal, well, guess what? You probably have different margins on the different products that you sell. So it doesn't make sense in that case to have a single TROAS against that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that goes into also like why would you want to segment your campaigns to begin with, right? I think a single smart shopping campaign for your account works really, really well if your North Star and if what you're trying to achieve is get as much conversion value as possible within a ROAS goal. However, in a lot of cases, we understand that that isn't the only business goal that a retailer may have, right? A retailer may have different profitability goals. Certain products have a higher profit margin than others. Some products may be in low stock, some products may be in high stock, some products may be seasonal and we really got to get rid of them this month, right? So all of those things are different signals that aren't necessarily just the conversion value. And by segmenting our campaign, that's really how we can inform smart shopping and smart bidding of how they should be treating these different products in these different groups, right? So we may want to have our higher margin products in a separate campaign that has a lower target ROAS, right? Because by having a lower target ROAS, we're saying bid more aggressively on these. We're okay if it's a little bit less efficient. But if a product has a much lower margin, maybe we only want to get sales and we only want to convert those if it's at a really, really efficient ROAS. So segmenting your campaigns are a good way of doing that, but also we don't want to go too overboard to a point where we can't meet the new ROAS targets and these additional constraints that we're introducing into the machine learning.
Right. And to get really tactical here for a second, so Google doesn't have a margin field, I believe, as of yet. So how do we build out campaigns based on different levels of profitability?
There's a bunch of Andrew, go for it.
Can I start off by saying I don't like doing it because it's so hard to know what people are actually buying after clicking on a specific product. We've run the numbers so many times, and there's very little correlation between what people end up buying and what they're actually clicking in the shopping ads. So it can be very misleading to run one campaign at 800% ROAS because you have a low margin and another campaign at a 200% ROAS because you have a huge margin. So we love to use Profitmetrics for it. Huge plug. It's another Danish company. We use it for a lot of our clients, and it shows you the profit derived from each transaction. So you're skipping a couple of steps. You're getting straight to the part where you get the profit from each sale, so you know what clicking a product actually ends up resulting in when it comes to profit. So you don't guess what the profit is based on what the margin is on the product.
Yeah, we had Frederick Boysen, I believe, from Profitmetrics on a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to see that episode. But yeah, I mean, I think regardless of how you go about it, like there's different tools that help you plug in profitability, and you can bring it into Optmyzr, and you can do split outs based on historical ROAS. But one of the key points we're hearing here is if you want to get the most success out of something, then oftentimes, if you do have the time to manage it, split it up in some way that makes sense. So Paul here is kind of lamenting, I think, that he's trying to convince a client of his to do what he thinks is right, but they want to do it the other way. When it comes to experiments, actually, and Peter, maybe you can weigh in, like one of the difficulties I've heard is that smart shopping basically sucks up all the traffic that's possible for it, and so completely ignores a competing regular shopping campaign that you have. So if you're in a scenario where you actually want to prove to your client that one works better than the other, what sort of a split out might function correctly and give you the data you need?
Yeah, so there is some truth to that. So if a product group exists in two separate campaigns, in one smart shopping campaign and in one regular shopping campaign, the smart shopping campaign will have priority, right? It would be similar to like the priority setting that we have on traditional shopping campaigns. It will take priority over the product group that's in the regular shopping campaign. So we really recommend testing if you are trying to compare by product group. So I actually did this a few weeks, but basically I downloaded a report of all of the different product groups that existed in an account, and then assigned certain ones that I'd want to put in smart shopping and certain ones that I'd want to keep in traditional shopping. The only sort of caveat that I had while choosing these is that I wanted some product groups that did have a considerable amount of conversion value to give it a chance to succeed. But you may also want to have a representative sample, right? Maybe pull in some product groups that have a higher conversion value and some that have a lower, as long as you have some there that are able to succeed. And then once we have those product groups selected, we can create a new Smart Shopping campaign with only the product groups that we want to test. And actually, because Smart Shopping is prioritized, we don't even necessarily have to remove those product groups from the traditional shopping campaign. Smart Shopping campaign will just take priority, and you'll leave the certain product groups just in the base campaign that aren't included in the Smart Shopping campaign, so you have something to test against, right?
Yeah. Emi, what's the role of the marketer in all of this? We're talking a lot of tactics here. So what's that shift that we have when so much of it can be automated?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the audience if that's okay. I think they're all experiencing Smart Shopping campaign as well as manual shopping. But I would love to hear, I know there are so many steps to get there, but what are the features or tools that are missing on the market that you would like to see on Optmyzr or any other platforms today? If you have any,
Okay,
I would love to see, because then we can help.
So Emi asked, right? So and they're here to listen. So yes, please put it in the chat comments on YouTube. What features you want to see? Okay, I've got the first one here, and Andrew, I'm sure you're going to ask for a feature too. But what is the split out for Smart Shopping between the different channels? How much of my budget is going to remarketing? It looks like Google actually has a beta for this. So some people have noticed under the attribution reports, there's a couple of new dimensions that have opened up that actually do show the split out for Smart Shopping campaigns. So my request would be open up this beta to more people and make it an official product. So that's what I'm asking for. Andrew seems to agree. Anything else, Andrew?
Like the biggest thing I have, so we see ourselves moving into that strategy role as we have taken on a lot of time. I think most PPC people like myself have been in the game for 10 plus years. If we need to add more negative keywords, we kind of like we don't want to do that anymore. Like, so nobody wants more control, but visibility, like that thing, the visibility, like the latest things that come out with smart bidding for a target CPA at least, or start showcasing with bidding higher and lower based on these parameters. The more of that, the better, because that like there's so much data that's being used today, and the better we can use that data to also inform clients, inform ourselves, and hopefully down the line say like, listen, this parameter with weekends that doesn't seem to be converting, we want to ignore that because we want to just hammer away on the weekends, because we don't want to leave all of the market for the competitors on the weekends, even though we know ROAS is lower on the weekend. That could be one example where that control that a lot of people are asking for, which sometimes gets misunderstood as the need to control, or it's just like we have some insights and we have some client requests and we have our own requests as well, that we like, that limitation sometimes hurts. But I know a lot of work is being done in listening to that already, and the visibility seems to be getting there, but I want to mimic all the others in the industry that says that.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, be the strategist, right? So don't pine for going back to the days of having to manage every single little thing manually, but figure out what's the bigger picture stuff, the data about your business that you can, how do you feed that into the machine so the machine can make better decisions? And then, like you said, if it's a strategy-based decision, like we're okay making less money on the weekends, we just don't want to lose these potential customers down the line. That's a big one. And I think, and Andrew, maybe we'll have you back in a couple of weeks here, but that also speaks to attribution, I think, right? So if you look at the last click attribution model, then yes, we will shut off your ads on any day when people are just beginning the process of shopping. And that's especially dangerous when you have smart shopping or smart bidding and last click attribution in combination with each other, because it's so hyper focused on a narrow slice of what's happening. It ignores everything around that, and that basically disappears. But that was actually a driver of what eventually brought people to purchase. All right, we're oh, Dan is asking us showcase shopping ads. Do some smart shopping campaigns supersede those?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have stats specifically. I would imagine Showcase performs quite well on both. I think the core difference here is that On smart shopping, showcase ads are automatically served, right? You don't need to create a specific showcase ad group. If we determine that it would be a good user experience and that it would maximize your goals, your results to serve a showcase shopping ads, we'll automatically group products together and be able to serve that, right? So I think one of the benefits that you'll get there is that, right, it's going to be, we won't be setting a specific ROAS goal in advance that we want to hit. We'll just let the machine learning determine when or when not to serve showcase ads based on the ability that it has to maximize our overall campaign goal.
Okay, correct me here if I'm wrong, right? But isn't that a query level decision that Google says this is a query that seems not specific enough that maybe we should show a showcase ad, which shows a variety of products as opposed to that one specific thing the user was looking for? And so then if Google says it's showcase, well then if you have a showcase ad, that basically is the one that pulls in, and your regular shopping ad would have not even qualified.
Yeah, so if you think about like what showcase ads are, right? They group products together and allow the user to sort of like filter through, oftentimes by brand. So they can go through the catalog, see the different products that you have to offer. If I know exactly what I want and I have a very, very high intent query, it might not make as much sense to service a whole catalog of different products, right? We surface the product that the user is looking for and make it super, super easy for them to convert on that. But if I have a query that's more potentially mid-funnel, right, I'm still in the discovery phase, I'm still going through that purchase journey, then presenting a catalog with a lot of different product options might be a better user experience and might drive some more engagement that way. So that is sort of how we're determining when to serve those showcase shopping ads, when the user is sort of in that stage of the purchase journey where they're still open to learning more about different products. Okay,
we're getting pretty close to time here, but this is the last live question I think we're going to take before we wrap it up. Oh, no, sorry, showed the wrong question. No, oh my God. Sorry, the questions keep moving around on my screen, so I click where it used to be, and then it's a completely different question. My apologies. So the people whose questions I showed, we're not going to answer them, but I do want to answer this one from Alexander. So what about learning, right? So smart shopping, smart bidding, it needs some budget to figure out what's what. How do you avoid that being wasted spend? How do you get the machine as close to where it needs to be as possible? And Andrew, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that one.
So the name of the game is trying to help smart shopping or smart bidding predict what will convert the best. So if you're worried about burning through a budget, start with the 10% or 5% or 20% of the products that are bestsellers. Like the 20% of the products that account for 80% of the revenue. Start there. Instead of throwing 10,000 products into a smart shopping or any shopping campaign, it's the good old rule. Spend $1 per click per product per day, and you've spent $10,000 in a day, and you've learned nothing. So limit the amount of products and then slowly start adding more products to it. Start with the bestsellers, and you'll burn through less budget, so to speak, but you will burn through some. That's just it. That's also part of the smart shopping and smart bidding game. That part that you will learn for yourself when you do manual bidding. That's basically what Google is doing. So you have to take some waste initially for the long-term gain.
Right, but also think about some exclusions potentially, right? So if you've already figured out that you don't really sell this product in New York City, then maybe exclude that from the beginning. And then later on, when things are working well and maybe you have some budget to see, can we actually make New York City work? Then you bring that location back into it.
And if you've learned something from your previous manual campaigns, like for instance, we have clients that sell posters or like those wallpaper things, and certain products it's funny, like the world map wallpapers, they seem to all show up in shopping on the word any sort of map related query, and it's such a waste of everybody's budget. So that product might not do well in an environment like smart shopping where we can exclude something. Some of those learnings, just take them with you, and some of the products will go in smart shopping, some won't. So every learning that you have that you can somehow mimic in smart shopping, give it an advantage instead of trying to start from scratch every time.
Yeah. All right. Great questions keep coming in. We just don't have time. We know people have to go on to other meetings. But what we will do is we will look at these comments as great suggestions for some blog posts. and we'll see if Google will help us answer those and maybe even get Andrew to weigh in. By the way, Andrew has great blogs on his website, savvyrevenue.com. So after this, go and check those out as well. Okay, closing thoughts. Who wants to start anything? I know we haven't really touched on YouTube for Action as a great opportunity to expand your shopping volume. Emi, do you want to tell us maybe a little bit more about that?
Yeah, maybe we can set up another session focusing on YouTube Action, and maybe we can share insights and then get feedback from everybody.
Yeah, we do lots of PPC Town Hall, so always open for more topics. By the way, the next topic we'll have in 2 weeks is running a successful PPC agency in the age of automation. It's a very pertinent question. Like, basically the people you've hired to do the account management for you, once they're no longer working on spreadsheets all day long, what should they be working on, and how do you remain relevant when Google automates so much? And then the 2 weeks after that, towards the end of February, we're going to do one on attribution. And I haven't asked Andrew yet, but if he wants to come back, he's certainly welcome to talk about that as well.
I can speak all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
But also in attribution, I'll ask a ton of questions of the other guys, because it's such a wild game, that whole attribution thing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Peter, do you as the guy who probably sees most of what's happening with all of Google's automation, like, what's your one takeaway? Like, obviously we've seen that it can work really well, but what sets you up for having that best chance of success?
Yeah, I think 2 things to highlight. One is just test, keep on testing always. I think as we start introducing like more and more like different types of automations, I think it's a pretty great opportunity for us as PPC practitioners to test different items and make sure that they work for the different user bases that we're servicing. And in terms of automation, like how we can help that and help inform it, help reduce the learning, right? Make sure that we're importing different conversion values, communicating to the machine learning by things like segmenting your campaign, setting different ROAS targets, making sure that it knows what it doesn't know through just the traditional baseline conversion value.
Great thoughts. Okay, well, thank you everyone for watching and for the great interaction we saw again in the questions, and people even answering each other's questions. I love seeing that. So the slides, like I said, we do have them available. Actually, we don't quite have them available yet, but if you go to this landing page right there, you can sign up, and we'll have them in about a week or so. But you'll have the slides from this session. You'll have some additional slides that we didn't get to talk about today that talk about best practices. But Emi, Peter, Andrew, thank you for your great insights today. Thanks for joining us. And like I said, we'll be back with the next PPC Town Hall on Wednesday, February 10th, and then again 2 weeks after that. So thanks for joining. We'll see you for the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks
guys. Great.